We honor Frank Golata not only for his skill as an outfitter, but for the example he set for us. In the beginning of the 20th century, he laid the foundation for the way for us to live here in the beginning of the 21st. He worked for the forces of progress, working for the railroads as they spread across western Canada. He outfitted the first survey crew for the Alaska Highway. He packed for oil explorers and miners. But even as progress became inevitable, he never wavered from his deep personal conviction that people should leave nature better than they found it. People should not take more than they need. He never overhunted and was a conservationist before it was clearly defined. He lived the outdoors with all of his senses. He hunted with a camera as well as a gun. He was a painter of outdoor art. He was a writer for Outdoor Life magazine. Frank Golata was one of those people who was trained to live within the constraints of civilization, but made the choice to follow the call of his heart to wide open wild. Born to Polish immigrant parents who were wood carvers by trade, he grew up in the railroad foundry town of Dunkirk, New York, on the shore of Lake Erie. Frank grew up working as a carpenter and a draftsman. He developed a great love for the outdoors, camping, fishing, skiing, and hunting in the Adirondack Mountains. Knowing there were higher mountains and wilder spaces, he soon headed west into Canada, and he kept going west, exploring as he went. He followed the grain threshers across the prairies into British Columbia, and there found his home close to the Peace River in Rolla, purchasing a farm in 1913 for $10. He farmed, but his reputation as an explorer was spreading. He was hired as a guide for the Henry Party in 1928 and the Charles Badeau expedition in 1932. Frank guided for Count Ledebeau and learned the outfitting business. In 1936, he guided an Ohio hunter, Mr. L.S. Chadwick, into the Musquaw River country of British Columbia in search of stone sheep. The Chadwick ram taken on that hunt is the only North American wild sheep ever recorded with horns that measured more than 50 inches. Frank's name was now tied to history, and he became a full-time outfitter. He and his wife lived happily beside the Peace River for 46 years. He was always close to the nature he loved. Upon his retirement in 1959, they moved to Shuswap Lake, about as close to civilization as Frank wanted to be, where he spent his time fishing and watching the seasons change. Frank once said, "If I had to live my life over again, I wouldn't change a thing." Those are words that can only be uttered by a man who lived doing what he loved and at peace with the way he did it. As an outfitter, Frank Golata showed us the way to the wild peaks. As a man, he showed us the way to love and respect the land and its marvelous creatures. The Frank Golata Outstanding Outfitter Award recognizes a North American outfitter, Wild Sheep Foundation exhibitor, and donor who outfits primarily for mountain game, whose entire career has exemplified the honor and dignity of the proud profession of guide outfitting.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Frank Golata Outstanding Outfitter Award, Wild Sheep Foundation past chairman, Mr. Jack Atchison Jr.
You know, I go hunting because it's a place where I can go and take a long, deep breath, and I can focus on something or nothing at all at the same time. And I want to thank the outfitters for making it easier for me and all those folks out in this audience to get to that place where they can take that deep breath and focus on something or nothing. Thank you. So we're talking about one of the most iconic outfitters of our time. But let's slip down to the southern end of the range where outfitters are. And outfitters have had different challenges there. They didn't have the wildlife just a few decades ago. And a group of landowners in Sonora, Mexico decided to bring their wildlife back from the brink. The wild sheep were almost gone. The deer were gone. There was nothing, empty ranches. So they pooled their money and their resources and found a place where there was wildlife to spare and started moving wildlife. And they kept after it. And eventually, a hunting season was possible because of their hard work, and they funded it with their own dollars. And I was really lucky at the time in my life. I knew some of those people in Mexico. I had the privilege of booking the first person on a modern sheep hunt in Sonora. And this was a really good friend of mine. And I want to share you the story. It's short. We get to the big mountain in Sonora. It's rough, it's steep, it's miserable. And this person thought, I had no idea desert sheep lived in such rough places. So after spotting and scouting, they identified the biggest ram way up on the mountain, right on the top, really a beauty. And down towards the bottom was a really nice one, not quite as big. They look through the spotting scope and they say to this gentleman, "There's your ram." And being a smart sheep hunter, he pushed the spotting scope down to the lower ram and said, "No, that lower ram is my ram." So there was a smart sheep hunter. At any rate, this area in Mexico has matured beyond that point. This particular outfitter that we're honoring tonight was the first hunting property to offer hunting for private citizens. And since then, they've taken over 1,000 clients hunting for deer and sheep and so forth. And as they matured as a outfitter and understood needs and so forth, they expanded their the species on their property and brought a new one and started moving them to an area where there were no sheep. And now there's sheep, and now there's sheep hunters, and it keeps moving forward. So putting sheep on the mountain and keeping them there, they adopted it on their own without prompting. This individual family also were the creators of the Wild Sheep Foundation Mexico Council of Restoring Sheep. I'd like to invite the RT family members present here to join us on the stage. They're the 2022 Golata Award winner. Please welcome to the stage, and let's say a round of applause for their contribution to us sheep hunters. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I didn't see it coming. Speaking from my family, this journey started 45 years ago. My dad started as a first outfitter in Sonora. The rest now is history. We're here enjoying all this with this family of hunters. I want to thank all the hunters that they've been trusting in our operation and some others. So without the hunters, we're nothing here. So thank you, guys.